Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov's chess channel and welcome to another great game from the round 7 of the Grand Chess Tour in 2019 in the St. Louis Chess Club. So it was the game between Magnus Carlsen and Maxime Vachier Lagrave. We had again a Greenfield defense in the previous tournament. Magnus Carlsen also faced Vachier Lagrave with the white pieces. They also played the Greenfield setup, and Magnus Carlsen really crushed Vachier Lagrave in this very annoying opening. But today I wanted to show you this game because I was hoping that Magnus Carlsen and Vachier Lagrave would go into this Russian variation of this Greenfield defense. You'll see what's all about. It's really a great tactical line in which white sacrifices the queen for 3 minor pieces. So what happened, we'll see now in this continuation of this video. I really like this 3 knights variation. I like to play it myself against the Greenfield defense because I don't like this common setup of the Greenfield, although you have good winning chances, but I like to always spice it up a little bit with some other opening preparations, like the Russian here in that Magnus Carlsen chose against the French Grandmaster. So here we have d4 by Magnus Carlsen. Knight on f6, c4, we have g6, knight on c3, and now comes this move d5. The most common line is this c takes d5 line, knight takes on d5, and now e4, knight takes on c3, b takes c3, and basically here black will try bishop on g7 with some preparations, of course, to play the move c5, cracking the position, cracking this very important central control that white has built here. But here this knight on f3 is the so-called 3 knights variation of the Greenfield defense, and here bishop on g7 is played, and now queen on b3. The idea behind this move is that we want to force black to do d takes c4, pardon me. So if you try something like c6 here, in order to have a compact position in the center, it doesn't bring you so much. After c takes d5 and c takes d5, we can play simply bishop on g5, and you're basically forced to play the move e6, weakening the position on dark squares here. So after common move e3, castling bishop on d3, you see white has a good development. All of the pieces are the most natural squares. The queen is developed. Basically we're one move far away from fully development here. So that's why this c6 line is not such a good choice, I think, in this Russian variation. So that's why the most common move here is the move d takes c4, and after queen takes on c4, the queen comes now on a weird square. The queen can sometimes be vulnerable to your opponent's attacks, but you have the compensation here. You have the central control. You have two pawns in the center. You have this central pawn control, which is very important. So you basically gained also the same thing like in this the previous Greenfield line. And I wanted to show you this particular line after the move a6. If you played move a6 here from black's perspective, then after bishop on e2, we have here maybe b5, queen on b3, and now knight on c6 can be played. This is now the so-called Russian variation. And now after e5, you can see sometimes this move bishop on e6. And the most aggressive way to continue here is e takes f6, and here after the bishop takes queen on b3, we have f takes g7, attacking the bishop, attacking the rook on f8. After king takes on g7, we would then take another piece, and here knight on d4 would be the continuation, knight on d4, and here queen on d4. So this is really one of the most aggressive lines of the Greenfield defense, and I was really wondering if here Vachier Lagrave would go into this particular line, but here he first castled, and Magnus played the move e4, and here we have knight on c6. Now we have the so-called provocative move, and the funny thing is that I've created today this video about the provocative move in my Basics in Chess series, if you're more familiar with my YouTube chess channel, and I'll show you the link of that video at the end of this video. So the importance of this provocative move is to place piece here, these 2 knights maybe, like here Vachier Lagrave did in the continuation, that you want to force your opponent maybe to play here d5 or e5, just in order maybe your opponent can get a tempo, but then we have a not such a good pawn structure here. After d5 or e5, the pawn structure would be more cemented. That's why here this knight on c6 and knight on f6 are really challenging now white center a little bit, and we are waiting white to do something. So here h3 played by Magnus Carlsen, because the threat, the positional threat, was to play bishop on g4, attacking here indirectly this pawn on d4. Knight on d7 was played, and now bishop on e3. And this then after that, knight on b6 was played by Vachier Lagrave, and of course queen on c5. If you try something like queen on d6, that's not a problem, because we can castle along here. It's a good line here. If you take the queen on c5, then d takes on c5, attacking the knight, and here you're basically forced to play knight on d7. But the problem is then you have knight on d5 attacking two pawns here. This is really a weakness, this pawn on c7. And in another continuation, you could maybe try bishop takes on c3, and after b takes on c3, knight on a4, attacking this pawn. But simple king on c2, I think it's better continuation for white here. The black's knight is on the edge of the board, so it's of course not good here to have this knight, and that's why I think white is simply better here. So after queen on c5, we have now a5 by Vachier Lagrave. The problem is, if you try something like e5 here from white's perspective, that's what I mean by this provocative moves. You changed your pawn structure in the center, so then you're weakening some squares here. And the same thing, if you try something like d5, you can play something like knight on b4, of course with the immediate threat to play knight on c2 with the fork. But the more important thing is that you have opened the position for this dark square bishop, and this is, as I said, this provocative move. I'll show you the link at the end of this video. So here we're waiting, we are allowing our opponent to create a tempo against our knight, but then the pawn structure will change. Now Magnus Carlsen doesn't have such a firm pawn structure in the continuation, so that's why here knight on d7 was played. Pardon me, first of all, rook on c1 was played by Magnus Carlsen, and now knight on d7 with an immediate attack on the queen. Queen on a3, and this queen on a3 is also a common move in the Greenfield defense. I've seen it many times, because you hide your queen a little bit. You just want to stay with the central control of the pawns in the center, because the central controls of course are restricting these four important central squares for black's minor pieces. And it doesn't matter if the queen is not so active here, because we want to stay first with the central control, play maybe bishop on e2, castling, really finish our development, and then try to get use of this pawn central control. Here e5 played by Vachier Lagrave, also common idea to get a pawn breakthrough, to really challenge now white's central control. And of course the most natural way here is to continue with the move d5. Knight on d4, of course if you take with the knight, then you lose a piece, so this is not good, of course. So that's why here knight on b5, also a common idea in the Greenfield. We are challenging now this d4. We are not allowing our opponent to occupy some space here with this knight on d4, because here a piece has already infiltrated on our side of the board, which is not good. When that happens, we should try to get rid of this very annoying piece here. So that's why c5 was played by Vachier Lagrave, supporting this knight on d4, and that's why d takes c6 was played, and now knight takes on c6. And it seems that this move is good, that you don't have any troubles, but the problem is that this move is really a mistake. The better continuation would be maybe here b takes c6. After knight on d4 we have e takes d4, and if your opponent takes, we can then play maybe something like c5, getting a tempo, and after knight on b5, bishop on b7, and it's, I think, perfectly playable, although white is a pawn up. but white still has the problems to develop maybe bishop on e2. You see, you need 2 more moves in order to castle here. As I said, knight on c6 was played, and here this gives now Magnus Carlsen the opportunity to play bishop on e2 with a fast development, knight on f6, and now rook on d1. So there are really no good squares anymore for the queen. Bishop on d7 is really weird move. This bishop is really paralyzed here. It doesn't have good squares. A good square would be maybe bishop on e6, but it's not possible because of this very annoying attack that Magnus Carlsen has created. And now bishop on c5, and this is now position huge advantage here for white, because if you try something like rook on e8, then knight on d6 is very dangerous. If you try rook on e6, then knight on g5. If you try here rook on e7, then here knight on b7 with the discovered attack, and again you lose the rook. So that's why here Vachier Lagrave simply decided to go at least grab a pawn here. Knight on e4, bishop takes on f8, bishop takes on f8 was played, and now queen on e3. Again, Magnus Carlsen is hiding a little bit with his queen, because the queen was a little bit in a natural position. And here knight on c5 was played by Vachier Lagrave, and this was, I think, a huge mistake, because there were many better continuations. You can try maybe something like f5. At least you have a supported central piece here that's very well placed. It's fixed here, or you can at least get now use of this bishop and play the move bishop on b4 with the check. At least create some kind of a weakness, because knight on c3 has to be played, and then maybe you can create some weaknesses here in your opponent's position, again maybe with the move f5. So queen on knight on c5 is just too passive. Again, you played against your opponent's attacks. You didn't find any counterplay here. After queen on e3, knight on c5, a defensive move. Many better tactical ideas were possible here for the French grandmaster. And here Magnus simply castled, is now up the exchange, and of course has a favorable middle game here. Queen on f6 was played, knight on c7. You see Magnus Carlsen is getting use of the tempo now. Rook on d8, and again another tempo, knight on d5 attacking the queen. We have queen on g7, and now knight on b6, again really forcing now black to trade off as many of these pieces as possible, because we want to go into favorable endgame with this rook versus maybe a minor piece endgame, because we want to trade off the pieces. Simple idea, nothing special here. Knight on d4, again forcing black to trade off more pieces. Bishop on e8, knight takes on c6. We have rook on d1, rook takes on d1, and now bishop takes on c6. Another problem here, bishop on c4. Now Magnus improves the position of this bishop. We have a nice blockade against this potential e3 move, and now queen on e5 was played by Vachier Lagrave. The main idea here probably for black is to create maybe some kind of a discovered attack with the move e3, and then liberate this diagonal for the bishop, but it was not possible because Magnus Carlsen played very actively here. He played first queen on d4 with the simple idea to really simplify the position. It's not that you always have to find the best tactical ideas. Sometimes simplification is really good. Queen on g5 was played, and now knight on d5, closing this diagonal for the bishop, so this e3 is not so powerful anymore. Bishop takes on d5 here, bishop takes on d5, and now knight on d3 was played by Vachier Lagrave. So maybe a better continuation would have been to play the queen on f5, at least trying to stay onto this pawn, but here knight on d3 was played, and okay, queen on e4, knight takes on b2, and here rook on b1 attacking the knight, and here queen on f6 was played by Vachier Lagrave. And you can find now, you can pause the video and find really the best continuation here. After this move, Vachier Lagrave resigned because it was a great tactical shot, and it was the move bishop takes on f7. In this position, as mentioned, Vachier Lagrave resigned because if you capture with the king on f7, then we have queen takes on b7, and you lose the knight. You see, you can also play queen on b3 in order to simplify the position even more, because here king on g7, and then simple queen takes on b2, really forcing to trade off the queens. If you take with the queen, of course, then we can simply take the knight, and again it's a favorable endgame here for white. Okay, great game by Magnus Carlsen. Magnus Carlsen has some troubles in this tournament. Although he's playing great attacking chess, he misses some tactical possibilities. Here, Vachier Lagrave didn't play an accurate opening line. I think he didn't play aggressive at all, allowed Magnus Carlsen to get use of this central control with his pawns. Slight inaccuracies really costed him the game here against the world champion. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this video. Meanwhile, you can watch my other commented chess games from this very cool tournament here, this Grand Chess Tour tournament in 2019 in the St. Louis Chess Club. And you can also subscribe to my channel if you like this content. Thanks you for watching, guys, and chess is the best, of course.